No nanny lasted week with the millionaire CEO's twins until she taught them one word that changed everything. Before we begin, comment below and tell us where are you from, which city you're watching from. And when it's over, be sure to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. No music teacher ever lasted more than a week with the billionaire CEO's daughter. 6 months, 7 teachers. None of them ever heard a single word from her. Until Maya Rivera sat down at a forgotten piano and played a song she didn't even know the little girl had written. And for the first time in 2 years, the child spoke. Just one word. Again. That was the moment everything changed. For the little girl who had gone silent. For the CEO who had buried his grief beneath meetings and money. And for a woman who thought she'd never be whole again after what she lost. This is the story of a melody that mended 3 broken hearts. The note. She didn't play. Maya Rivera stood at the front gates of the Hale estate, clutching the handle of her second-hand keyboard case like it might float her through this storm. The sun hadn't quite broken through the fog rolling off Lake Michigan, and the mansion ahead looked more like a monument to silence than a home. Her fingers were stiff from the wind, or maybe it was nerves. Her grandmother's words whispered through her, "You don't need to be perfect, just kind." She rang the bell. No answer. Again. Nothing. So she did what her Abuela Rosa would have done. She pushed the gate open and walked in like she belonged. Inside, everything smelled like money and lemon polish. The marble floors were colder than she expected. Walls lined with oil paintings and museum-grade lighting cast everything in a sterile glow. There were no family photos, no laughter echoing behind doors, just footsteps, hers. And then she saw her, a little girl, 6, maybe 7. Black curls tied too tightly, knees tucked up to her chest on the grand staircase. Not playing, not speaking, just watching. Maya offered a small wave and a soft smile. The girl blinked but said nothing. "Hi," Maya whispered. "I'm Maya. I heard you might like music. I brought a few things." Silence. Then heavy footsteps from above. Jonathan Hale descended the stairs like he was built out of steel. Tailored black suit cufflinks that probably cost more than Maya's rent. But it was his eyes that caught her. Cold, flat, and exhausted in a way she recognized. "Miss Rivera." His voice was clipped. Not cruel, just used to closing deals, not opening hearts. "Yes," she answered, straightening her scarf. "I'm the 7th/8th, he corrected, in 6 months. He didn't offer his hand. "The rules are simple," he continued. "She doesn't talk. She doesn't play. And if she walks out mid-session, you walk out with her." "Understood." Maya looked at the girl still sitting silently on the stairs. She was hugging her elbows like she might float away without them. "What's her name?" A pause. Then Emery. Maya crouched down, set her keyboard bag on the floor, and unzipped it slowly. "Hi, Emery," she said gently. "Can I show you something?" Still no response. Not even a flinch. Maya pulled out an old, dented metronome. "This is Henry. He clicks. He keeps secrets." Emery tilted her head. Barely. But it was something. And this Maya reached for the small thumb-sized kalimba tucked in a velvet pouch. "This one's my favorite. You can hold it. Try one note." Emery blinked. Her hands moved an inch, then froze again. "All right," Maya said, her voice barely louder than a breath. "I'll play one instead." She plucked a single note. Soft. Warm. Like sunlight through curtains. Then another. And another. Until the pattern of a lullaby began to take shape. She didn't know why that melody came. It wasn't one she rehearsed, but it felt like someone else's memory. Soft and sad, waiting to be heard. And then Emery hummed. Just one quiet note. Jonathan looked up so fast it startled even himself. Maya didn't move. She just smiled. Maybe she said softly, "There's a song inside her. She just needs someone who knows how to listen." Jonathan's jaw clenched. "You're not here to play therapist." "I'm not," she replied. "I'm here to stay." He didn't believe her, but Emery had hummed, and that meant the music wasn't gone, just hiding. The truth was, Maya knew all about hiding. Chapter 1. 3 Rules and a Locked Piano. Maya returned the next morning with a warm scarf, a cracked thermos of cinnamon tea, and 2 small music books tucked under her arm. The frost on the wrought iron gate hadn't yet melted, but she didn't shiver this time. She was walking into the cold by choice. Inside the mansion, the housekeeper, Martha, she'd learned, gave her a sympathetic nod, but said nothing, just gestured silently toward the sitting room where Emery waited. Same place Maya asked. Martha's lips pressed together like she wanted to say more, but she didn't, just nodded again. Maya stepped in. Emery was on the same velvet chair, one foot tucked under her, the other swinging gently. She had a sketchbook on her lap and a pencil in hand. When Maya walked in, she didn't look up, but she didn't leave either. Progress. Maya sat on the carpet instead of the chair beside her, placing her things down gently. I brought options, she said, opening her bag. Kazoo, tambourine, glockenspiel. And these magic beans, she added, holding up a bag of jelly beans. At that, Emery glanced sideways. One eyebrow lifted barely. I know, Maya said in a whisper. Sugar's evil, but sometimes tiny rewards work better than giant promises. Silence. Want to trade? You give me one drawing, I'll give you a bean. Emery hesitated, then flipped the sketchbook toward Maya. The page was filled with swirls of color, angry reds, quiet blues, and something else beneath them, what looked like musical notes. Maya's breath caught. They weren't clear, not really, just loops and lines. But to her trained eye, it looked like melody in disguise. She didn't say that out loud. She just handed Emery a green jelly bean and whispered, "Deal." Emery popped it into her mouth. Still no smile, but her shoulders dropped just a bit. Jonathan appeared at the doorway 10 minutes later, dressed like he always was, too crisp, too clean, too hollow. She hasn't left, he asked Martha, startled. No, sir, Martha said. They've been in there the whole time. He frowned, walked in. Maya stood. Mr. Hale, she greeted. He nodded stiffly. Miss Rivera, I just need a word. Outside in the hallway, he folded his arms. I appreciate your time, he said, but I want to make 3 things clear. Maya braced herself. 1, you're not here to heal her, just to introduce sounds, maybe stir something familiar. Nothing more. She nodded slowly. 2, my daughter does not talk, not to me, not to her therapists, and certainly not to music teachers. Please don't mistake humming or head tilts for communication. All right, Maya said calmly. And number 3. He hesitated. There's a room upstairs. It's locked. It stays locked. No matter what. What's inside, she asked before she could stop herself. His jaw tensed. It doesn't concern you. Understood, she said softly. 3 rules. Got it. He studied her, as if trying to figure out what kind of game she was playing. But there was no game. Just a woman with a music bag and a cracked thermos, standing in a hallway that had forgotten how to echo laughter. Later that afternoon, Maya asked Emery if she wanted to try an outside lesson. Surprisingly, the girl nodded, just once. They ended up in the back courtyard where crisp leaves covered the patio. Maya drew quarter notes on the pavement with chalk. Emery followed behind her, coloring them in. Ever walked on music? Maya asked, stepping along the drawn notes like a dance. Emery tilted her head. Then, to Maya's shock, she followed, carefully placing her small feet on each note. A silent rhythm, a quiet ballet, a conversation made without sound. As the wind blew, Emery reached into Maya's bag and pulled out the kalimba, sat down cross-legged and touched it gently. Just one note, then another. Maya didn't move, didn't speak. She just listened, because sometimes that's all a person needs. That night, as Maya sat on her small balcony back home sipping lukewarm cinnamon tea, her abuela Rosa came out bundled in layers, holding a crocheted blanket. Day 1, she asked. Better than expected, Maya said. She hummed. She followed. She played. Y el Padre, Rosa asked with a raised eyebrow. Maya smirked. He's tight-laced, exhausted, grieving. Be careful, mija. I know. Children open hearts, Rosa said softly. But broken men, they guard them with swords. That night Maya couldn't sleep, because the notes Emery played, They sounded eerily familiar, as if someone else had written them before, someone who no longer lived. Chapter 2. Echoes in the Conservatory. The third morning Maya arrived at the estate, she brought nothing but silence. No keyboard, no games, no jelly beans, just herself. Emery was already waiting in the sitting room, bare feet tucked beneath her sketchbook open. Her curls were looser today, as if she'd slept better. Maya noticed the faintest smear of green jelly bean sugar on the corner of the drawing. A gift, perhaps? Instead of unpacking her bag, Maya sat beside her and looked at the sketch without asking. It wasn't a melody this time. It was a greenhouse. But not any greenhouse. There was something hauntingly specific about the way Emery had drawn it. Ivy crawling up cracked glass, a wooden door slightly ajar, golden light pouring out. The kind of detail that didn't come from memory, but longing. Maya whispered, "Where is this?" For the first time, Emery looked up. Not just glanced, looked. Her eyes met Maya's, full of something unspoken. Hope, maybe. Then she stood, walked to the door, and gestured. An invitation. Maya followed her through the hallways, her soft flats brushing against the hardwood floors, through a corridor she hadn't noticed before. It smelled like old books and hydrangeas. When they reached a back staircase, Emery paused as if gauging Maya's reaction. Then she descended. At the bottom was a wrought iron door, half covered by vines. Emery reached for a rusted key hidden beneath a potted fern. Maya watched, stunned. She'd done this before. Emery slid the key into the lock and turned. The door creaked open into another world. A glass conservatory tucked behind the house, completely hidden from the front. Overgrown, but alive. Wild ferns spilled out of shattered pots. A piano, dusty but intact, sat in the center, flanked by two benches and a rain-stained skylight above. Golden morning light poured in through the glass. It lit up the room like it remembered being loved. Emery walked in like she belonged to the space, like it knew her name. Maya stood at the threshold, heart suddenly aching. This wasn't just a garden. This was a memory. Emery climbed onto the piano bench and placed her fingers on the keys. Not to play, just to rest them there, as if touching it was enough. Maya sat beside her. She didn't speak. She let the room say everything. The air felt sacred, holy in a way no church ever had. Then Emery pressed two keys, one low, one high. Maya recognized the interval. It was from the same haunting pattern the girl had hummed before, the same one that lingered in Maya's dreams. Without a word, Maya reached over and completed the phrase. 3 more notes. Together they filled the room like a whisper between mothers and daughters. Something long forgotten. Unfinished. Emery turned to her slowly and smiled. The first smile. From the main house, Jonathan watched through the upper window. He hadn't stepped inside that conservatory in years. He remembered it as the last place his wife had played with Emery. A Saturday morning. Flour on their aprons. Sunlight in their hair. A song half finished on the piano. He remembered the moment his wife turned to him and said, "If anything ever happens to me, make sure she never forgets the music." But after the accident, Emery stopped playing, so he locked the door. To keep her memory safe, he told himself. But truthfully, he just couldn't bear the sound of a melody she might never finish. Now he heard it again. Faint, childlike, healing, and it wasn't coming from him. Later, as Maya helped Emery dust off a bench near the conservatory's side wall, she found an old notebook, water-stained, molded at the corners, but inside sheet music, half-written bars, scribbles, lyrics in faded ink, a lullaby for the girl who lost her voice, but hears it in dreams when the world is too loud. Maya's hand trembled. Did your mom write this?" she whispered, not expecting an answer. Emery didn't reply, but she slid the notebook into Maya's hands and curled into her side. Just like that. The sound of nothing had never meant so much. That evening, as Maya was packing up, Martha intercepted her in the hall. "You should know," she said gently, glancing toward the conservatory. "No one's been in there since Mrs. Hale passed." "I didn't know it was off limits," Maya replied carefully. Martha smiled. It was. But maybe it shouldn't have been. She hesitated. You remind me of her, you know. Maya blinked. Of who? Of Elizabeth, Emery's mother. A pause. She used to teach music in the public schools until the cancer got too loud. Maya didn't know what to say, so she just whispered, "Thank you." That night, Maya played the phrase Emery had started, again and again until her own memories blurred with it. She didn't know why, but the notes felt like something she had been meant to find, a melody looking for its ending, a child waiting for a voice. And maybe if she stayed long enough, the song would tell her the rest of its story. In the quiet of her apartment, Maya whispered, "What if I wasn't sent to teach her anything? What if she was sent to teach me how to feel again?" Chapter 3. The CEO Who Doesn't Believe in Luck. Jonathan Hale liked control. He liked balance sheets results and people who didn't ask questions. But the woman currently sitting on the edge of his daughter's world, she asked the kind of questions that weren't polite. Worse, she didn't even ask them out loud. She just looked at him like she already knew the answers. That night, after Emery had gone to sleep and the house was finally still, Jonathan walked into the library and found Maya seated on the rug leafing through an old music theory book she must have pulled from the shelves. "I didn't know you were still here," he said, voice sharp. Maya looked up, calm as a lake. "She fell asleep on my lap," she said simply. "Didn't want to move." Jonathan blinked. "She hasn't done that with anyone since he cut himself off." Maya nodded gently. "I know." The silence between them stretched. Then she said something that tilted the ground beneath him. "Why did you stop playing?" Jonathan's jaw tensed. "I haven't played since college. I saw the Steinway in the West Study." He didn't respond. Maya pressed carefully. "Did you know Emery's been composing?" At that, Jonathan turned. She's been sketching rhythms. Bits of melody. I don't think she even knows she's doing it. It's instinct. Like muscle memory. She hasn't spoken in 2 years. I know. But music doesn't need words." He looked away, hands shoved into his pockets. "You believe in all this?" he asked finally. "The idea that playing a few notes will magically unlock her trauma." "No," Maya said gently. "I believe grief needs space, and people who don't run when it gets heavy." He laughed, bitterly. "You've known her for 3 days. She let me into the conservatory." His eyes snapped to hers. "You went in there." "She showed me the way." Jonathan's chest rose sharply. "That room is not dangerous," Maya interrupted. "No, just full of memory. I locked it for a reason, and she unlocked it for one." They stared at each other, neither flinching. Finally, Jonathan sat down, not on a couch, on the opposite end of the rug, a quiet truce. "She watched her mother collapse in that room," he said. "1 minute she was laughing. Next, gone. Brain aneurysm." Maya's breath caught. She hasn't spoken since. Just humming. Little sounds, but no words. No music. She remembers, Maya whispered. Jonathan looked up. "What, she's trying to finish a song? One her mother started. I saw the sketches. She hums it when she thinks no one's listening." He looked like she'd hit him. Then, with a voice softer than anything she'd yet heard from him, he said, "She used to play that melody every night. My wife. It was unfinished. She said she'd know she could die in peace once the last bar was written." Maya felt tears sting. "Emery is writing it," she said. The weight of that sentence dropped between them like thunder. Later, as Maya gathered her things to leave, she turned to him. "Mr. Hale." "Jonathan," he said. She nodded. "Jonathan, you don't have to believe in luck, or therapy, or magic." A pause. "But you should believe in your daughter." That night, Maya sat at her tiny upright piano in her apartment, replaying Emery's notes slowly, tenderly, piecing together the fragments. As her fingers moved, something unfamiliar rose in her chest. Not grief, not guilt, hope. It was terrifying. That night, Jonathan stood outside Emery's bedroom door, listening, and from beneath it, barely audible, came the sound of humming, and a single word, whispered, not spoken. "Mama." Chapter 4. The Silent Recital. The idea came to Maya late one evening after Emery's humming had lingered long past their session. She hadn't meant to stay so long, but time blurred inside the conservatory the way the light refracted off the old glass panes, the creak of ivy pressing against the structure, the faint perfume of things that had once bloomed. Maya sat on the floor beside the piano bench, Emery next to her barefoot small hands draped across black and ivory keys. She wasn't playing. Not yet. But she wasn't walking away either. And that was everything. 3 days later, the recital was ready. Not the kind with applause and velvet curtains. This one had no audience, no pressure, no stage. Just Maya, Jonathan, and Emery. Inside the hidden glass garden that had held its breath for 2 years. That evening, the sky turned lavender above the conservatory's ceiling. Maya lit 4 candles and placed them on the corners of the piano. She kept her voice soft, her movements slower than usual, like trying not to spook a wild bird. Jonathan stood stiff near the wall, arms crossed his suit, a size too formal for this kind of memory. "Why the candles?" he asked quietly. "She's scared," Maya said. "Light feels like safety." He nodded once. Emery walked in, clutching a small piece of paper, a page of her scribbled notes. Without prompting, she climbed up onto the bench. She looked at her father, then at Maya, then at the piano. Her hands trembled. She pressed one note, then another, a faltering rhythm, off time. But it was hers. Maya didn't speak. She joined her quietly on the second bench, left hand, gently adding bass chords as Emery searched for the melody. Together they built a sound more honest than anything Maya had heard in years. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Jonathan stepped closer. His face had gone still, the kind of stillness that means you're trying not to break. Then about 2 minutes in, Emery did something Maya hadn't seen her do before. She stopped, took a breath, and whispered. Again. Jonathan's hand flew to his mouth. Maya turned to him slowly. "She's asking," she whispered, "to try again." And so they did. That time she played through. 5 minutes, 10. She missed notes, repeated bars, but she didn't stop. Jonathan sank into the bench behind him like the breath had left his lungs. By the time they finished, his face was streaked with silent tears. He stood across the room in slow steps and dropped to one knee beside his daughter. "You did it," he said, voice barely audible. "You remembered." She didn't speak. She just leaned into his chest. And for the first time in 2 years, he held her without fearing she might slip away again. That night, Maya stayed late at the request of neither child nor father. Just the quiet. She sat in the conservatory long after they left, fingers tracing the keys softly. There was something about the melody Emery had played, some final measure missing, a chord that refused to resolve. She opened the water-stained notebook Emery had given her and studied the jagged ink, the lyrics scrawled between staves. She dreams in silence and wakes in sound. She carries the music her mother left down. Maya swallowed hard. In the main house, Jonathan stood in his private office staring at a photo he hadn't touched since the funeral. Elizabeth in the conservatory holding Emery baby curls and chubby cheeks atop the piano bench, laughing. He ran his thumb over the edge of the frame, and for the first time since she died, he let the photo fall forward, face up, not hidden. Maya closed the notebook and whispered into the silence. This isn't just her mother's song anymore. It's ours now. And she played the first note again this time, without fear. Chapter 5. The Room. She locked. It was the rain that changed everything. Maya arrived early that day. A storm had rolled in from the lake, overnight thunder pressing low against the windows, the kind that made the world feel smaller, quieter. She found Emery curled on the floor outside her own bedroom, her arms wrapped around the kalimba Maya had given her. No piano today, no humming, just silence, tighter than usual. Maya sat beside her, didn't speak, just listened. Eventually, Emery reached into her sweater pocket and pulled something out. A silver key, scratched, worn, heavy for its size. She handed it to Maya with two hands carefully like it might break. Maya didn't ask questions. She recognized the hallway, the door, the one Jonathan had told her never to open. But she also recognized trust when she saw it. The key clicked louder than expected. Maya pushed open the door. The air inside smelled like lavender, and something older sheet music yellowed at the corners, stale perfume trapped in fabric. It wasn't dusty. Someone, probably Martha, had been keeping it clean, but it was untouched. Elizabeth Hale's music room, piano, bookshelves, a small couch under a window where the rain tapped softly now. On the wall, framed photos Maya had never seen. Elizabeth and Emery. Elizabeth and Jonathan back when his eyes still smiled. In the corner, a writing desk. Maya approached it slowly. Inside journals, a stack of letters, and on top of everything else, the sheet music. The same melody Emery had been trying to finish. Only this one was incomplete, just like hers, but not identical. Maya laid the two side by side, Elizabeth's and Emery's. They mirrored each other, like two halves of the same heart. One from a mother afraid she might not finish it in time, the other from a child desperate to carry it forward. Tears blurred the staves. She didn't hear Jonathan until he spoke. "What the hell are you doing?" He stood in the doorway, thunder rolling behind him like his anger had summoned the weather. Maya turned slowly. "She gave me the key," she said. "That doesn't give you the right," he snapped, stepping inside. "This was her room." "I know. You promised to stay out of things you didn't understand." "I didn't come looking for it," Maya said, voice calm. "But she needed me to see it. She doesn't know what she needs." He spat. Maya stood. "You're right. She doesn't need me." Jonathan flinched at the softness in her tone. "She needs her mother, and since she can't have that, she's trying to finish the only thing her mother left unfinished." She held up the 2 pages of music. "She's writing her mother's last song, Jonathan, and you're the only one who refuses to hear it." His face cracked, just slightly. Maya stepped forward. "This music," she said gently, "it's not just a melody. It's how Emery remembers her, how she keeps her close, how she says what she can't speak." He looked down, his breath catching, and then his voice low. "I wasn't supposed to survive her." Maya swallowed. "But you did." He turned away. "Get out." Maya stood there a moment longer, then set the pages down carefully on the desk. She walked past him without another word, but as she stepped into the hallway, she glanced back. He was sitting on the floor now, clutching the sheet music, weeping silently into the only thing she'd left behind. That night, Maya didn't go home. She wandered the city, walking past shuttered music stores and empty cafes. The storm had passed, but the air still carried that electricity, the kind you feel in your chest before something breaks or blooms. At midnight, she finally returned home. Her grandmother was waiting. "You look like you've walked through someone else's sorrow," Rosa said gently. Maya sat beside her on the couch. "Is it wrong?" she whispered. "To want to save people who never asked you to?" "No," Rosa said. "But it's dangerous to think they owe you something just because you stayed." In the quiet, Maya looked at the unfinished melody again. She whispered, "I think I finally know how to end it." But she wasn't sure she'd be allowed to. Chapter 6. The One Song. Left Maya didn't show up the next morning. For the first time since she'd arrived, the conservatory remained empty. Emery waited by the window with her kalimba. Her sketch pad lay open beside her blank, save for a single penciled treble clef drawn too tightly. She hummed once, then again. But the echo stayed shallow. Upstairs, Jonathan paced. He hadn't slept. The pages from Elizabeth's writing desk lay spread across his office floor, scattered like evidence in a case he didn't know how to solve. Half notes, forgotten phrases, lyric lines that ended mid-thought. "If I'm gone, let her play." Not what I taught her, but what she needs to stay. He reread the line 5 times before it finally broke something inside him. Maya had been right. not just about the music, about everything. Downtown, Maya stepped into a dusty old piano store with cracked windows and faded jazz records lining the walls. The kind of place where ghosts of songs lingered in the floorboards. She needed a real instrument, not her cracked keyboard or borrowed chords. If Emery was going to finish this song, really finish it, it had to be done on something worthy of remembering. The man behind the counter raised an eyebrow, looking for something. Something old, she said. Something that's held more grief than joy. He smiled like he understood that more than she expected. He led her to the back. A Steinway. 1973, walnut. The keys worn down in just the right places. Maya sat, played 3 notes. It answered her like it had been waiting. She bought it with all the money she had left, and a promise she wasn't sure she could keep that it would be played by someone who needed it more than she ever would. When she returned to the estate the next afternoon, Emery ran to her. Ran. Wrapped her arms around Maya's waist and held tight. No words, but none were needed. Jonathan stood nearby, not cold, not bitter, still guarded, but softer around the edges. "I owe you an apology," he said. Maya blinked. He looked down. "You were right." She didn't say anything, but forgiveness was already in her eyes. That evening they met in the conservatory again, but this time it wasn't just for Emery. Maya had rewritten the song, by ear, by memory, by love. 3 parts. 1 for Elizabeth, 1 for Emery, and the third, she didn't say it out loud, but she'd written it for the man who still didn't know how to mourn with both hands open. She taught Emery her part first, slowly, with care. Then she offered Jonathan the second bench. At first he shook his head, but Emery reached out, took his hand, led him there, and together father-daughter and the woman who had quietly rethreaded all their brokenness, they played the whole piece, for the first and final time. When it ended, the room stayed silent. And then Emery softly said the words that had been waiting in her chest since the day her mother died. She told me once, "Music doesn't go away. It just waits until someone's brave enough to finish it." Later, Jonathan walked Maya out to her car. The sun had dropped low, painting the estate in gold and ache. "I don't know what happens next," he said. Maya smiled gently. "That's the best kind of music. The kind you haven't written yet." He looked at her like he might say something more. But instead he opened her car door and stepped back. A small act of grace. Maybe the beginning of something. Maybe just the end of something beautiful. As Maya drove away, Emery stood at the window, kalimba in hand, plucking the final notes. And Jonathan, still in the garden, whispered to no one, "Thank you," for giving her back her voice, even if deep down he knew she wasn't the only one who'd gotten it back. Chapter 7. The Goodbye That Didn't Feel Like One. The last week snuck up quietly. No fanfare, no official notice. Just the scent of drying leaves and the shifting way the light hit the conservatory floor. Maya had known from the beginning this was temporary. A 6-week contract, 1 child, 1 hour a day. She never expected to find family inside that hour. Emery had changed. She still didn't talk much, but she didn't need to. Her hands spoke. Her music filled the house now. Sometimes loud, sometimes soft, but always present like a heartbeat rediscovered. She sat beside Maya at every lesson, no longer hesitant, no longer afraid of the keys. She played freely, sometimes messily, but always with feeling. And Jonathan. He showed up every day, not always to play, but he listened now. He sat with them, sometimes brought tea. Once he even smiled without realizing it, Maya noticed, and maybe that's what scared her most. On Tuesday, she sat with Rosa on the phone outside the estate. "I think I'm done here," Maya said softly, watching a breeze scatter the last yellow leaves. "You sound like you don't want to be," Rosa replied gently. "I'm not sure what I am. They needed me, but maybe only for a little while. Sometimes that's all God asks of us, Mija, to be a bridge, not a destination." Maya closed her eyes. "But what if the bridge wanted to stay?" Rosa's voice was warm. Then maybe you weren't a bridge after all. That evening, Maya found Jonathan in the study, flipping through an old music anthology. He looked up, surprised. "Didn't think you were still here." "I needed a moment," she said. He nodded. A beat. Then he closed the book and asked, "Will you stay for dinner?" Maya blinked. "What tonight?" Emery asked. A pause. "Okay," she whispered. Dinner was quiet, cozy. They ate in the small dining room, not the grand one guests never touched. Maya helped Emery set the table. Jonathan brought out wine. Laughter slipped in unannounced. Afterward, Maya sat at the piano. Jonathan watched her from the doorway, arms folded, tired but not closed. "You're leaving soon," he said. She nodded. "I wasn't supposed to stay this long." "You changed her life," he said quietly. "I think she changed mine more." He hesitated. "So, what happens now?" Maya looked up. "I don't know." A long pause. "Do you want to stay?" he asked. The words hit her like music in a silent room. That night, Maya drove home slowly. She parked but didn't get out. Just sat in the dark car, forehead resting on the wheel. He'd asked, not demanded, not negotiated. Asked, "Do you want to stay?" And for the first time since losing everything, since the miscarriage, since her divorce, since her mother's stroke, Maya realized she didn't feel like she was running anymore. She felt chosen. The next day, she returned to the estate without her bag. No sheet music, no lesson plans, just a decision. Emery met her at the gate. No words, just held out her hand. And Maya took it. Not because she had to, but because for the first time, she wanted to stay. Chapter 8. The Note. She left behind. The rain returned that Sunday, not loud this time, just soft, persistent, like a quiet reminder. Maya stood barefoot in her apartment staring at her overnight bag. She hadn't told Rosa, not yet. She didn't want to call this a decision. She didn't even know what it was. But last night when Jonathan looked at her across that candlelit dinner, something unspoken passed between them. Not romance, not yet. Something gentler, something like permission. She reached for her mother's old scarf, the one that still smelled like lavender in years. She wrapped it loosely around her neck, grabbed her keys, and paused. There on the counter was a letter she'd written weeks ago. Never mailed, never finished. Just a folded page with her name scrawled across the front in her own handwriting. It was the letter she'd meant to send to Rosa if she decided to leave town again. Maya opened it slowly. "If I disappear again, please know it's not because I stopped loving the world. I just didn't think it could hold me anymore. Not after what I lost." She stopped reading. She didn't need to see the rest. Because she finally understood. She hadn't disappeared. She'd found her way back. At the Hale estate, Jonathan was in the study flipping through more of Elizabeth's journals. Every time he touched them, it felt like trespassing and homecoming at once. He found one dated 6 days before she died. Inside a single page, a poem. "When I am gone, let music fill the air. Let it wrap her up like a lullaby I didn't get to finish. And if someone kind finds her, tell them not to save her. Just sit beside her until she learns to sing again." He closed the book. Maya's voice floated down the hall. Laughing, gentle off-key, he smiled. Later that day, Maya sat on the conservatory floor with Emery arranging cutout shapes for a music game. Emery paused and looked up. "Will you be here tomorrow?" It was the first time she'd asked a question about the future. Maya nodded. "If you want me to be." Emery reached out, pressed a small note into Maya's hand, a folded page from her sketchpad. Inside 5 simple words written in thick crayon: "Stay, we're not done yet." That night, Maya stood by the window of her apartment watching the city breathe. She opened her phone and called Rosa. "I'm not coming home," she said softly. There was silence. Then Rosa's warm chuckle. "I know, mija. I knew the moment your voice changed." On her bedside table, Maya placed the old letter, and beside it, a new one, this time addressed to herself. "You didn't disappear. You healed." Chapter 9. The song that belonged to all of them. It wasn't meant to be a recital, not in the traditional sense. There were no programs, no stage lights, no announcements, just a handful of neighbors, staff, and old friends of the Hales gathered in the glass conservatory that had once held nothing but shadows. Now it held light. Candles lined the window ledges. Soft jazz played in the background. The piano was polished to a warm gleam. The bench, once Elizabeth's, was dusted and draped with a scarf Maya had found tucked inside her old journal. Not for decoration, for memory. Maya arrived early, dressed simply. A long navy sweater, soft curls pinned back. She wasn't performing, but she'd written the piece, or rather rewritten it. The song was no longer titled Lullaby for her daughter. Now it read, If You're Still Listening, a song for us. Jonathan stood by the archway, eyes fixed on the room, unreadable. He hadn't said much since Maya accepted the offer to stay, but his presence had changed. Less weight, less armor. Tonight he wore a gray shirt and no tie. He hadn't even touched his watch. When Maya moved to stand beside him, he didn't step back. "She's nervous," he said softly, nodding toward Emery, who sat beside the piano clutching a page of sheet music. "She's brave," Maya replied, "just like her mother." A pause. "Just like you." Maya looked at him, heart tugging, but before she could answer, Emery stood. The room quieted. She walked to the piano and sat. Not a word, just a breath. Then her hands began to move. It was slow at first, tentative. The first bars were the same ones she'd played in the beginning, the same ones her mother wrote. But this time there was something else inside them. Confidence, grace. The middle section, Maya's part, carried them forward. A gentle key change, a warmth that hadn't existed in the original. And the last movement, that was Emery. Notes no one had taught her, a rhythm born from her own heartbeat. A small voice growing larger. As the final chord lingered in the room, Emery lifted her hands and turned to face the people watching. "I wrote the ending," she said, voice clear but soft, "because I wanted her to hear me." No one breathed. Then applause, gentle, stunned, reverent. Jonathan stepped forward and pulled her into his chest. "She heard you," he whispered. "I promise you." She did. Later that night, after the guests had gone, Maya lingered in the conservatory. Jonathan brought her a glass of cider. "She told me," he said quietly, "that the song didn't belong to just her anymore." Maya looked at him. "It never did," she replied. He nodded. Then almost shyly he asked, "Will you play it one more time?" Maya hesitated, then sat. Jonathan took the second bench beside her. Together they played, not for performance, not for closure, for connection. Outside, the wind brushed against the glass walls. Inside, a melody bloomed familiar but changed, because grief had written the first verse, but love had finished the song. Chapter 10. The Melody. She took with her 2 weeks past. The conservatory was still filled with music, some of it Emery's, some of it Maya's, but most of it was something new, something shared. Maya had settled into the rhythm of staying, waking early, making tea for the staff, playing duets with Emery, meeting Jonathan in quiet moments neither of them named. There was no declaration, no sudden kiss, no cinematic swell of romance, just something slower, truer. She didn't need him to rescue her, and he never asked her to fix him. They were simply there, together, like melody and harmony finally in tune. One morning, Maya sat by the piano, sorting through Emery's music when Jonathan approached her. "There's something I want you to see." He handed her a manila folder. Inside, an audition form, a music school in the city. "She doesn't know yet," he said, "but they have a youth program, full scholarship. They only take 6 kids a year." Maya blinked. "You think she's ready?" "I think she's already there," he said quietly. "She just needs the room to grow." Maya smiled, then paused. "You're letting her leave?" He nodded slowly. "I won't let her stay small because I'm afraid." Maya touched his arm. That's the bravest thing I've ever seen you do. They told Emery that afternoon. At first, her eyes went wide with fear. Then her hand found Maya's. Will you come with me? She asked. Maya crouched down. To the audition. Of course. No, Emery said. To the new school. Maya's eyes filled, and before she could answer, Jonathan stepped in. I already asked her, he said. A week ago. Maya blinked. You did. He nodded. I didn't want to make the mistake of waiting too long again. The day of the audition came. Maya sat in the hallway of the city conservatory, Emery practicing behind the tall wooden doors. She wore the scarf Elizabeth had left behind, and in her hand, tucked beside the music folder, was a letter from Rosa. She opened it slowly. My brave girl. You were never broken, just quiet for a while. Music may have brought you back, but love gave you the courage to stay. Emery was accepted, not just accepted, celebrated. The panel said her piece was raw but luminous, technical but deeply emotional. She didn't smile. She beamed. That evening, Jonathan stood beside Maya at the edge of the city skyline. She doesn't need either of us forever, Maya said softly. No, he replied, but maybe we both needed her. A long silence passed. Then do you think we're ready? He asked. Maya leaned her head on his shoulder. Maybe not, she whispered, but we're here, and that was enough. That night, as the city lights flickered to life, Maya played the song one last time, not as a goodbye, but as a beginning. And from the next room, a child's voice joined her, not afraid, not silent, whole. If you hear her song, sometimes healing doesn't come like thunder. It doesn't arrive on the day you finally stand up, or when someone says, I love you back. It arrives softly, in the silence between two people who choose to stay. For Maya Rivera, it arrived in the sound of a little girl's hum, too quiet for most to notice. But she noticed. Because Maya knew how to listen to things that had been forgotten. She hadn't come to the Hale estate to be anyone's savior. She just needed work, a pause in her own unraveling. But the moment she stepped into that glass conservatory, she saw it. Not just the grief, but the space inside the grief, the kind that waits for music. And maybe that's what this story was all along. A song with missing parts. One written by a mother who left too soon, a daughter who couldn't speak, a father who didn't know how to hold his pain, and a stranger with a cracked keyboard and a quiet heart who walked in without asking for anything and ended up giving them everything. They don't live in silence anymore. The estate echoes with music now. Not always perfect, but real. Human. Emery plays in the city most days. She wears her mother's scarf around her wrist like a promise. Jonathan still sits at the second piano bench. He doesn't play often, but when he does, you can hear it. He's no longer playing alone. And Maya, she never left. Not really. Because the moment someone hears your pain and stays, that's where home begins. Maybe there's a song in you too. One no one's heard. One you're still learning to play. If this story found you at the right time, if you heard yourself in the silence, if you remembered something you thought you'd buried, then don't rush away. Just sit with it. Breathe. And if you feel ready, leave a word. A note. A name. Someone else might need to hear it too. If this story stayed with you, the next one might heal you even more. There's another melody waiting just ahead. We'll see you there when you're ready. Until then, stay kind and keep listening, because someone always is. Tell us, what are your thoughts on this story? Leave a comment and rate it from 0 to 10. Make sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell to follow all our latest stories. And don't miss out, click here to watch more now.